Have you ever seen an abandoned ship just washed up on the beach? If you have, it probably looked something like this. But if you've ever seen an abandoned ship floating at sea, then it probably looked like this. This is the ghost ship Ourang Medan, and her story is absolutely terrifying. This cargo ship was found off the coast of Malaysia in 2004. She had been abandoned, mid-voyage with the entire crew missing. It was like a real-life siren's call, except instead of sailors being lured to their death by magical song, they were taken by something far more sinister. But how did she end up there? To find out, we have to go back to when she first set sail. The Ourang Medan was a British ship built in the early 20th century. She was used for transporting general cargo throughout Asia, and in 1906, under the command of Captain Jarrett, she left the port of Penang in Malaysia and set sail for Shanghai, China. On board were 24 crew members plus 13 passengers. Among them was a famous author named W. Somerset Maugham. He would later write about his experience on the ship in a book called The Narrow Escape. He told a story of a seemingly normal voyage during which he got along well with the other passengers and the crew. There were also 3 Chinese stowaways on board, but they weren't a problem. The ship was carrying opium, which was very profitable at the time because opium dens were all the rage in America and Europe. On February 7th, the ship arrived safely in Shanghai. The passengers disembarked and went on their way. The ship took on new cargo and prepared for a return journey. But not everything was as it seemed. Captain Gerard ordered the ship to depart immediately. For some reason, he wanted to leave that night. His passenger list was suspiciously short. Some passengers who had booked passage didn't show up, and the stowaways from the last trip were still hiding somewhere on board. And finally, a dense fog had rolled in, which made navigating the waters extremely dangerous. All of these factors combined meant that things were about to get really dark. On February 8th, Captain Jarrett ordered the ship to turn on all of its lights to help it cut through the fog. Then he went below deck and left navigation to his first mate. That's when the stowaways decided to make their move. They crept out of hiding and began moving crates of cargo to block off the hatches leading below deck. One of the crew members noticed them and raised the alarm. A fight broke out between the crew and the stowaways. The crew managed to seal off the hatches again, but they lost control of the ship. Without their captain, they couldn't navigate. As the fog was so thick, they sailed straight into a sandbank and ran aground. Now stranded on the ship with no way to call for help, the crew and remaining passengers tried to get the ship free of the sandbank, but it was no use. The Ourang Medan was stuck. Meanwhile, the stowaways divided into 2 groups. The first group planned to stay hidden until the ship reached port, at which point they would steal the cargo and run away. The second group wanted to send a distress signal ashore so that rescuers would come and tow them off the ship. On February 11th, after 4 days on the sandbar, a tugboat spotted the ship and offered to take the passengers off. At this point, Captain Gerard returned from below deck and was informed of what had happened. He allowed the passengers to leave, but he refused to let the stowaways go. He negotiated with the tugboat captain, agreeing to pay him extra money if he would only take the crew off the ship instead. And so the tugboat towed the Ourang Medan to another location while the passengers boarded the tugboat and left the ship. According to those who left, the ghost ship had a full set of lifeboats, life rafts, life buoys, and life buoys. In addition, there were only 6 empty lifeboat spaces on the entire ship. So why did the crew decide to abandon ship in good weather, leaving behind all of their equipment and most of their cargo? Well, they must have had a pretty good reason. After the passengers left the ship, the Ourang Medan disappeared into the fog. No one knows exactly where she went or why the crew left her. Some say that the crew went down with the ship, while others say that they were rescued at sea. What we do know is that the ship was never seen again. For 47 years, the Ourang Medan remained a mystery until she resurfaced near the Malaysian coast in 2004. Hear us how she was discovered. A fisherman spotted what he thought was a large log floating in the distance. As he got closer, he realized that it was a ship. He contacted the police, and soon the entire world knew about the rediscovery of the Ourang Medan. People rushed to see the ship, but she was quickly towed away. Rumors spread that the ship was cursed, and that anyone who approached it would be killed. The ship was brought to a shipyard for inspection. Divers inspected the ship, but found nothing. Even more strangely, all the ship's records had been destroyed. There were no details of who owned the ship or who had captained it. The only markings on the ship were the name Ourang Medan. But even that was a little strange because Ourang Medan means ghost ship in Malay. It's as if someone had deliberately tried to hide the ship's identity. In the years since, many people have claimed to have witnessed paranormal activity on the ship. Some say they've seen ghostly figures walking around the ship, while others claim that they heard the sound of screams and gunshots coming from inside it. The truth is, we don't know what happened to the Ourang Medan or her crew. All we know is that she was abandoned at sea with all of her lifeboats and life rafts in working order. What could have caused the crew to leave the ship, and why did they leave the ship's records behind? Some believe that the ship may have struck an iceberg, causing the crew to flee. Others say that the ship was carrying dangerous cargo, such as biological weapons or nuclear waste, and that the crew fled out of fear of being exposed to it. Still, others believe that the ship was cursed, with some even claiming that the ship is haunted by the ghosts of those who died on board. But I think there's another explanation for what happened here. You see, the ship was sailing during a time when the seas were full of pirates. The South China Sea was especially dangerous for ships because of the many hidden reefs and islands where pirates could hide. Pirates would often attack merchant ships, stealing their cargo and killing the crew. In fact, there was a notorious pirate named Qing Shi, who operated in the South China Sea during the early 20th century. His fleet of ships was known for attacking British vessels, including those carrying opium. Opium was a valuable commodity in those days, so it's likely that the pirates would have killed everyone on board and stolen the cargo. But why would the crew leave behind the lifeboats and other equipment? Well, it's possible that the ship's captain made a deal with the pirates to spare his life and the lives of his crew. He may have agreed to turn the ship over to the pirates without resistance in exchange for safe passage off the ship. It's also possible that the ship's cargo of opium was worth more than the ship itself, and so the captain decided to sacrifice the ship in order to save the cargo. He may have set fire to the ship or blown up its boilers, causing the ship to sink and the cargo to be lost at sea. Ultimately, we may never know what happened to the Ourang Medan or her crew. But one thing is certain, the ghost ship is a reminder of the dangers of the sea and the lengths to which people will go to protect their cargo. If you want to hear more stories about mysterious ships, then stay tuned for more content. See you next time!